Etymology, definition, and ontology. Jinn, singular genie, derives from the Arabic root jnn, meaning to hide or to conceal. The name indicates beings that are hidden from ordinary human perception. In Islamic sources, jinn form a distinct created order, separate from humans and angels. Jinn are described as created from smokeless fire, which denotes a subtle, non-corporeal, energetic substance rather than biological flesh. This contrasts with humans created from clay, material terrestrial, and angels created from light, purely celestial. Jinn possess intellect and free will, enabling belief or disbelief, obedience or disobedience. They exhibit agency, comparable to humans. They form societies, establish kinship, and maintain political hierarchies. Their natural lifespan is long, often depicted as thousands of years, but they are finite and can die. Jinn are normally imperceptible, but can manifest in perceivable forms. Traditional reports describe shape-shifting into humans or animals, for example, snakes, dogs, or birds, and aerial and smoky manifestations, plumes, dust, or storms. Manifestation is volitional. Humans see them only when jinn choose to take a visible form. Descriptions attribute rapid movement, traversal of barriers, passing through walls, and long-distance travel to jinn. Their abilities are preternatural, beyond ordinary nature, but not absolute. They are created, contingent beings bound by divine limits and susceptible to injury, error, and moral accountability. Jinn can observe humans, influence thoughts or environments, and in some reports, possess humans. Influence ranges from inspiration, for example, poetic recitation in Arabian tradition, to harm, deception, accidents, or psychosomatic phenomena. Reports note that certain times and places, ruins, deserts, cemeteries, dusk and night, are associated with increased encounters. Invisible here means undetectable by normal senses, not non-existent or purely symbolic. Smokeless fire indicates subtle fiery essence, not combustion smoke. Possession denotes temporary control or intrusion into a human's faculties, distinguished from illness by ritual diagnostic criteria in traditional practice.
Pre-Islamic Arabian beliefs in desert context. Before Islam, the Arabian Peninsula was dominated by tribal, animistic, and polytheistic traditions. Within this landscape, jinn occupied a central place in explaining natural forces, illness, and inspiration. They were regarded as autonomous desert spirits, unseen beings inhabiting the vast uninhabited zones between settlements. Oral traditions describe jinn as residing in deserts, ruins, caves, and graveyards, places associated with danger, silence, and absence of human control. These locations symbolize the boundary between safety and chaos. Travelers were advised to announce their presence when entering remote areas to avoid disturbing resident jinn. In pre-Islamic lore, jinn were neither wholly benevolent nor malevolent. Some guarded travelers or livestock, others led people astray. Offerings of food or incense were occasionally left to appease them. Unlike later demonological systems, they were not servants of a single evil power, but independent entities whose behavior depended on temperament and circumstance. Even in this early period, storytellers distinguished among kinds of jinn. Some were described as airborne spirits causing illness or nightmares, others as earth-dwelling tricksters haunting ruins. This informal classification foreshadowed later Islamic typologies but remained fluid and local. By the 6th century CE, when the Prophet Muhammad was born, belief in jinn was deeply integrated into Arabian culture. They provided a framework for explaining unseen causes and for understanding inspiration, disease, and destiny. Islam would later retain their existence but redefine their nature and place in the cosmic order under a single divine authority.
Quranic and theological framing. The Qur'an affirms the existence of jinn as a distinct creation of God. Multiple verses refer to them explicitly, establishing them as rational, responsible beings subject to divine law. The most comprehensive reference is Surat al-Jinn, chapter 72, which recounts a group of jinn listening to the Prophet Muhammad's recitation and declaring belief in the message of Islam. Islamic theology recognizes three intelligent orders of creation: angels, created from light, incapable of sin or disobedience; humans, created from clay, bound to the physical world; jinn, created from smokeless fire, positioned between the two, material enough to act, spiritual enough to remain unseen. This triadic model situates the jinn as bridging the celestial and terrestrial realms, operating largely unseen but interacting with both. Like humans, jinn possess aql, intellect, and ikhtiyar, free choice. They can believe or reject, obey or disobey. The Qur'an addresses them with the same moral imperatives as humans: worship God, follow revelation, and prepare for judgment. Their actions are recorded, and they face resurrection and reckoning on the day of judgment.
Islamic commentaries describe jinn societies mirroring human diversity. They form tribes, communities, and faith groups. Some are Muslim, others Christian, Jewish, or pagan. The Qur'an, 72 verse 11, quotes jinn themselves saying, "Among us are the righteous, and among us are otherwise. We follow diverse paths." This verse establishes them as a moral spectrum, not a single category of evil spirits.
Classical exegetes locate the jinn's natural habitat in a barzakh, an intermediate domain between the visible world, alamul shahada, and the unseen, alamul ghaib. While their plane overlaps the human world spatially, its vibrational or energetic nature differs, explaining their invisibility. Certain liminal zones, twilight, crossroads, abandoned sites, are described as points where these dimensions intersect. Although jinn can influence humans, they act only by divine permission. The Qur'an repeatedly stresses that neither jinn nor humans can transgress God's will. Attempts at mutual contact through magic or divination are condemned as forbidden sorcery, which reinforces monotheistic authority over all unseen forces. One narration describes the Prophet Muhammad being approached by a delegation of jinn from Nasibin, northern Arabia. They listened to him recite the Qur'an at night, accepted Islam, and pledged to teach their kin. This episode formalized the Prophet's role as messenger to both species, confirming that revelation extended beyond humanity. By incorporating jinn into monotheism, Islam neither denied nor abolished the old belief. It reclassified it under divine order. Jinn became a theological category, illustrating the vastness of God's creation and the shared moral responsibility of all intelligent beings.
Iblis and the fall. The Quran presents Iblis as a jinn distinguished by his refusal to obey God's command to bow to Adam. Unlike angels, Iblis possessed free will, allowing disobedience. His act of refusal marked the first rebellion within creation. When ordered to acknowledge Adam's divine origin, Iblis claimed superiority, saying he was created from fire while Adam was formed from clay. This reasoning expressed pride based on substance, a sin of arrogance rather than disbelief itself. His defiance resulted in his expulsion from divine favor. After his fall, Iblis became the leader of the shayateen, the evil faction among the jinn. Shaitan, plural shayateen, denotes any jinn or force that seeks to mislead. Iblis thus functions as archetype and commander of corrupt jinn, directing them to whisper, tempt, or deceive humans. In Islamic theology, Iblis is not an angel and not an equal adversary to God. He is a created being with limited scope. His rebellion does not constitute a cosmic dualism, but serves as a moral lesson on arrogance, envy, and free choice. Iblis requested respite until the day of judgment, pledging to mislead humankind. The Quran records that this permission was granted as a test for human and jinn alike. His existence demonstrates the persistence of evil as a trial, not a rival force. Through Iblis, the Quran explains temptation as an external influence that exploits internal weakness. His power is persuasive, not coercive. He exemplifies how jinn can act within human moral struggle, reinforcing accountability rather than negating it.
Taxonomy and types of jinn. The Arabic word jinn encompasses all beings created from smokeless fire. Within this category, sources, especially medieval Islamic folklore and scholarship, describe several distinct kinds based on temperament, power, and behavior. These classifications are interpretive rather than fixed, but they clarify the diversity attributed to jinn across cultures.
1. Jinn. The term jinn refers to the most general or primordial form of jinn. Early commentators used it to denote the original race from which all others descended. Jinn are often described as neutral or elemental, dwelling in remote deserts and acting independently of human affairs. 2. Jinn, specific tribes. Within folklore, jinn may also refer to specific tribes or clans. Some are peaceful, others hostile. They coexist unseen alongside human societies, mirroring human organization with their own rulers, families, and allegiances. 3. Shayateen. The shayateen, singular, shayatan, are the evil jinn, followers of Iblis. Their purpose is to mislead and corrupt through temptation, deceit, and influence over destructive actions. They represent the moral antithesis of faithful jinn, but remain of the same created substance, fire, not darkness.
4. Ifrit. The Ifrit is a powerful, often malevolent class known for strength and cunning. Descriptions portray them as winged spirits inhabiting ruins, desolate buildings, and subterranean spaces. They can manipulate wind and sand, cause accidents, and occasionally serve sorcerers. In literature, they appear as adversaries requiring skilled control or containment.
5. Marid. The Marid are typically the largest and most arrogant of the jinn. They are often associated with the sea or open air, capable of immense physical force. Marids appear in myths as wish-granting beings, though always dangerous and capricious. Their consent or cooperation must be gained through ritual command or trickery. 6. Ghoul. The ghoul, from which the English ghoul derives, is a carrion-eating jinn haunting graveyards and wastelands. Ghouls assume forms of beautiful women or animals to lure victims, then consume flesh or drain vitality. They exemplify the boundary between supernatural spirit and corporeal monster. These categories frequently blur in storytelling. A single being may display traits of several types, and regional traditions introduce additional variants. The taxonomy reflects an attempt to organize diverse folklore under a unified theological framework rather than a rigid system.
Places, legends, and haunted zones. Jinn are traditionally linked to specific landscapes across the Arabian Peninsula and broader Middle East. Deserts, caves, ancient ruins, and graveyards are repeatedly cited as their habitats. These spaces represent boundaries between the living and the unseen, where human control fades and unseen agencies dominate. In present-day Saudi Arabia, the rock-hewn ruins of the Nabatean city Madain Salih are regarded in folklore as haunted by jinn. Travelers historically avoided camping there at night. Reports from Islamic tradition state that the Prophet Muhammad instructed his companions to pass quickly through such ruins, not to drink from their wells, and to show reverence, as these were places of divine punishment and jinn habitation. Medieval cosmology described Mount Qaf as a cosmic range encircling the world built from green emerald and serving as the frontier of the visible realm. It was often cited as the mythic homeland of the jinn, a metaphysical barrier separating their world from that of humans. Poets and mystics referenced it to symbolize the limit of human perception. Another enduring legend concerns Iram, also called Ubar, or the Atlantis of the Sands. Quranic references describe it as a city of unmatched splendor, whose inhabitants defied God and were destroyed by a storm. Later folklore claimed its ruins were buried beneath the desert and guarded by jinn, turning the site into a symbol of arrogance punished and treasure cursed. In North African tradition, a notable example is Aisha Kandisha of Morocco, a female jinn often depicted as a strikingly beautiful woman with camel or goat feet. She lures men into the wilderness,
leading them to madness or death. Her story blends pre-Islamic spirit worship with Islamic demonology, illustrating how Jinn lore adapts to local cultures. Across regions, specific customs developed to avoid offending Jinn in their habitats. These include reciting prayers before entering deserted areas, avoiding the spilling of hot water outdoors, and knocking or giving verbal notice before occupying a space believed to be theirs. Such practices express coexistence through caution rather than confrontation. These places and figures reflect how belief in Jinn explains environmental hazards, storms, mirages, sudden deaths, while also marking moral and spiritual boundaries. To wander into abandoned spaces without respect was to risk violating the unseen order that governed them.
Possession, protection, and exorcism practices in Islamic and Middle Eastern tradition. In Islam and Middle Eastern tradition, the jinn can enter or influence human beings. Possession is typically described as temporary control over the body or mind, resulting in sudden personality change, erratic movement, or speech in unfamiliar voices. The afflicted person is said to experience inner disturbance rather than constant habitation. The jinn's presence is energetic, not physical. Possession is thought to occur through provocation, revenge, or vulnerability. Accidental harm to a jinn by pouring hot water, shouting at night, or occupying its dwelling can invite retaliation. Other causes include sorcery, sehrt, where a magician enlists jinn to harm a target, or emotional weakness, allowing external influence. Islamic practice prescribes specific forms of protection known as ruqya, consisting of Quranic recitations, supplications, and remembrance of God. Verses such as Ayat al-Kursi 2:255 and the final chapters al-Falaq and al-Nas are recited to repel harmful jinn. Maintaining ritual purity and regularly performing prayers are also considered protective barriers. When possession is suspected, a qualified reciter or scholar performs ruqya aloud, commanding the jinn to depart in the name of God. The process includes reading selected verses, blowing lightly over water or oil, and instructing the afflicted to affirm belief. The intention is restorative, not violent. The goal is to heal, not to punish. In North Africa and the Maghreb, Sufi orders such as the Gnawa and Isawa developed musical and rhythmic ceremonies for spiritual purification. Drumming, chanting, and ecstatic dance induce trance states in which the jinn are believed to be pacified or expelled. These rituals merge Quranic invocation with older healing customs. Mainstream Islamic scholars distinguish legitimate ruqya based solely on scriptural recitation from unlawful practices involving talismans, pagan invocations, or bargaining with spirits. The former is an act of faith. The latter constitutes sorcery and is condemned. Despite variations, all traditions share the belief that protection depends on remembrance of God and moral conduct. The jinn's influence is restrained by spiritual discipline, demonstrating that unseen forces operate within divine law rather than outside it.
Jinn, from Islamic texts to modern belief. After Islam unified Arabia, ancient jinn traditions shifted from oral folklore to written texts. Writers integrated earlier desert myths into Islamic cosmology, using jinn to illustrate moral choice, divine justice, and human curiosity about the unseen. The Qur'an established them as real, accountable beings created from smokeless fire, distinct from humans and angels, yet equally bound by divine law. Jinn soon appeared in literature such as Alf Layla wa Layla, The 1001 Nights, where they acted as powerful but fallible spirits governed by God, yet vulnerable to human wit. Through translations, like Antoine Galland's 18th century French edition, these complex beings were transformed into genies, wish-granting servants detached from their theological roots. Western retellings reduced them to symbols of fantasy, while in Islam they remained sentient creations with moral responsibility and judgment. Today, belief in jinn remains widespread across the Muslim world. The Orthodox view accepts them as real, unseen beings who eat, reproduce, and die, or modernist interpretations see them as metaphors for hidden psychological or natural forces. Both coexist, faith and science often overlap, with Quranic recitation used alongside medicine for protection or healing. Globally, jinn now appear in film, television, and fiction, sometimes feared, sometimes romanticized, but within Islamic thought, they continue to represent the unseen dimension of existence, linking ancient revelation to modern imagination.